Does anyone remember the Lonely Planets TV show? I think it was a thing in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was kind of like those travel guide shows, but it was a Lonely Planet one. So it wasn't just stay here and stay there and it only cost you this much money. It was actually someone traveling around a country or a city and telling you about their experiences. It was so much fun. I used to love the show and I used to really, really want to be a presenter on the show or wrote for Lonely Planet. My life went in a very different direction, but now, thanks to the Because We Can Readathon, I have made a short version of a Lonely Planet episode all about Narnia, just for you guys. So, sit back and relax and enjoy my Lonely Planet Traveler's Guide to Narnia, Because We Can Readathon challenge number 7. Alright guys, so here we are. We've managed to make it into Narnia. One of the things that you need to be aware of when you're trying to travel to Narnia is that you never know what time you'll end up in Narnia, because time works differently here than it does in our time. And you never know how long you're going to be gone. You could be gone for several days, weeks, or even years in Narnia time, but when you travel back to our world, maybe it's only been a moment. But nonetheless, we made it. So we went through a painting. It was a painting, in fact, of this very archway. I'm not 100% sure where precisely this is. We'll have to have a little bit of an explore, but judging from the ornate archway and the somewhat overgrown garden behind it, I'm thinking we're somewhere near Cair Paravel, but maybe not during the Pevensy's reign. Maybe a little after? It's difficult to know what period of time you'll have ended up in Narnia, so like I said, we better go and check it out. Come on. Okay, so as you can see behind me, we are in fact in some gardens and definitely cultivated at some point. I think we've got a gardener's house behind us, but I haven't managed to figure out if this is in fact Cair Paravel. Who knows, maybe it's the witch's mansion and it's been repurposed. Nothing suggests what time period we've managed to come into, so I think we need to have a little bit more of an explore. So I still haven't found anyone. But I've definitely ascertained that we're in a garden, and I'm pretty sure, thanks to the ruins that I just found, that we're in fact in the ruins of Cair Paravel, which means we're potentially in the same time frame as Prince Caspian. It's a little hard to tell because, like I said, we only get those few snapshots in the diaries of the Pevensey children and Eustace as to what's actually going on, but I think that might be where we are. A few things to think about when you decide to travel into Narnia. Like we just said, we don't know what time we'll eventually come into or how long we'll be gone for in our own time. So it's almost not worth telling anybody that you're planning on going, but just in case it works out to be the opposite way, probably best to tell someone that you really know and trust to believe you, so that even if you turn up not 2 seconds after you've left and say you've been gone for years and years, they'll believe you. But also, it's best to have someone know where you've gone, just on the off chance that the other way around happens and you end up coming into Narnia for 2 seconds and being out of our world for a few years. So better to play it safe. So what to bring to Narnia? Well, given that you don't know how long you'll be here, probably best to bring clothing for all seasons, which means layers. So at the moment I'm wearing a long sleeve t-shirt and a scarf because this is probably autumnal spring weather, so it means that I'm covered for any of those things. I can of course take the scarf off should it get really hot, roll up the sleeves again should it get really hot. Judging from the fact that the Pevenseys were from England and seemed pretty comfortable with the weather when they went into Narnia, I'm going to suggest that Narnia's climate is probably fairly similar to the UK, which is again fairly similar to what I have where I'm from, which is of course Tasmania. So you're looking at not too hot and you're looking at getting fairly cold in the winter. So you do need to have those warmer layers, but it can get warm on a few days. So maybe a pair of shorts or a skirt would be a good idea to bring along as well. Now, should you bring food? Well, the evidence suggests that you might have a little bit of time figuring out where you are and therefore where you can stay. So probably worthwhile bringing camping type fare, stuff that you don't need to cook, muesli bars, that sort of thing, with you for potentially a day or two, just in case it takes you a while. Make sure you bring a fairly decent sized water bottle and be prepared to go hunting for a water source when you arrive, so that you're fairly well prepared. This is all assuming that you do arrive, similar to the Pevensies in Prince Caspian, in an area of Narnia that you don't know or that takes you a little while to realise you do know. Because you might come out near a town, or depending on the time in which you come out, you could come out near the Beaver's Dam or even near Mr. Tumnus's house. In which case you'd probably be okay for food, but it's not a bad idea to be prepared for having to have a few days of scrounging and trying to figure out what's going on. Where can you stay? Again, it's difficult to know the time frame that you'll come out in. Be prepared to sleep rough for a couple of nights while you figure that out and find someone that you can stay with. If you arrive during the Pevensies' reign, you're pretty much going to be guaranteed to find somewhere to stay anywhere in Narnia. I think that's considered the golden age of Narnia, so you're going to be okay. Cair Paravel is of course prime real estate and definitely a must stay when you're in Narnia during this time period. But really, if you want to travel around Narnia, I would suggest getting in contact with people like the Beavers, Mr. Tumnus. I'm pretty sure that during that time period they made the Witch's Castle into like a hotel museum type of place. Probably not quite like what you'd expect to find in our world, but still somewhere you can definitely stay and definitely worth hitting up, because I think there'd be a lot of really interesting history and relics in that place. If you happen to come in the time of Prince Caspian, the town and fort of Bruennon, it's definitely worth a look. Beautiful part of the world. And at that point, that whole river has turned into a canyon, and that's just gorgeous. Be careful though, you don't want to wind up coming across too many bears or anything like that, but it is beautiful. Definitely worth a look. Lots of areas that you can camp in Narnia. Most of Narnia is pretty much rolling hills and gentle slopes, so definitely take some kind of camping gear. Potentially just a sleeping bag and a bedroll would work, because even though it can get pretty cold, if you're there in spring, summer or autumn, it's going to be pretty nice weather to sleep out. So it's definitely worth doing that, because the stars at night are just unbelievable. If you happen to come at the right time, you might even get to go on a ship journey out into the waters and ocean surrounding Narnia, which is another amazing experience. Definitely one to sample if you can. But head down to Cair Paravel, because there's bound to be all sorts of craft out in the bay and going out into the ocean, so I'm sure that you can find a vessel that will take you on a day trip or even an overnight trip somewhere around the waters of Cair Paravel. I would highly recommend. But of course, one of the most popular tourist attractions is the lamppost. Near Mr. Tumnus's house in the far northern reaches of Narnia, pretty much hidden in a thicket, but most guidebooks will give you the location, approximate location, so you should be able to find it. It's definitely a historical landmark and well worth a look. And in fact, if you are looking for the history of Narnia, the Witch's Castle is definitely worth a look, along of course with Cair Paravel and the ruins of the Stone Table. So if you're a history buff, I would check out all of those areas. And don't forget, like we said, the lamppost. Interesting from the point of view of history of Narnia, but actually also a history of our world, because if you've read the history of Narnia that comes into Magician's Nephew, you will know that we were there in the beginning. Alright guys, so that's my little quick introduction to visiting Narnia. I really think that now I need to go and see if I can do something myself about finding somewhere to stay and figuring out where I am, because as you can see, it looks like it might rain soon. Okay guys, so that was my Because We Can Readathon challenge number 7. I really hope that you enjoyed my version of a Lonely Planet guide to Narnia. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.